Hello and welcome to the podcast. My name is Anna Manning and I am the owner and founder of Yes You Coaching, and I'm a confidence coach for nice people. And today we've got one of those nice people on the podcast. So we've got Zoe, an interview with Zoe today. And Zoe was in the Confident at Work group, I think in April 2022. So she is a Confident at Work graduate, and you can hear in this episode just how much she's changed and her confidence has grown and things are different for her at work than they used to be. Zoe is really open in this episode, and I think it's a treat to listen to somebody who can speak to some of the things that we feel on the inside and that we deal with, the challenges that we deal with on the inside, and just be really honest and open about it. And she told me before we started that she was pushing herself way out of her comfort zone recording the podcast. And then she told me at the end that she was glad she did it. So do enjoy listening to this episode. And if you're thinking that the Confident at Work program might be right for you, if you're thinking you want to do the work to grow your confidence at work in 2023, then I will leave the details in the show notes and you can look at the Confident at Work program and do what Zoe did and join and change your work life for the better. So without further ado, here is Zoe talking about her experiences in Confident at Work. Welcome to the podcast, Zoe. And for everybody listening, Zoe is a client, a former Confident at Work program client, and she kindly agreed to come on the podcast today to talk to us a bit about her experience, the kind of stuff she's been working on, all the things. So Zoe, why don't you start by telling us who you are and a bit about what you do?
Hello. I feel so special being on this podcast. I'm a bit nervous. I don't
That's
know
cool. That's
why.
fine. Yeah. Did you ever do a podcast before?
No, never done a podcast before.
Well,
Done
maybe that's
acting
fun.
in my previous life, but this is new.
Nice.
I don't have a script. This is all real, so I'm feeling a bit nervous. But anyway, I am a healthcare policy professional. So basically, I work bit for the NHS and especially on patient safety matters, clinical negligence. I guess my role, if I were to describe it, I would be the person who listens to um, the trials and tribulations of our wonderful NHS staff colleagues and
Mm-hmm.
tries to translate that into policy recommendations for government to impact patient safety and get real change.
Cool. That sounds good. What is important to you about that? Like, what do you like about it? Why do you do it?
In a way, I feel like I'm helping the NHS, albeit in a small way, in my opinion. Like I'm not a clinician, I don't have those skills, but I have other skills that help the system to change.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what matters to me. I feel like I make a difference.
Yes. Nice. So for all the trials and tribulations of work, it feels like you are actually making a difference.
Yeah.
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 Cool. Good. And I guess we should say, or we could say, that actually me and Zoe used to work together. So in my past life, before I was doing the business full time, we were in the same team. I was a policy professional with Zoe,
You're a
although
policy
she was
professional.
more of a policy professional than me. It
I
probably
don't
has to
think
be said.
so. We
But
could argue about that all day.
yes, we probably shouldn't in the interest of confidence at work. We probably shouldn't. But yeah, so Zoe became a client and she joined the Confident at Work program. And we had another interview with Nick a couple of weeks ago, and the reason that I wanted Confident at Work program clients to come on to the podcast and talk about it is because I talk about this stuff on the podcast all the time. Like, what are the issues with confidence building? What are the challenges that we face at work? How do we manage ourselves? How do we develop our confidence and overcome some of those challenges? And I could talk to everyone on the podcast about it till I'm blue in the face, but I think it's better when people actually come and you can hear it from someone who's actually like been through it, who's actually started, who's actually worked on stuff, and just how they found it and what was hard, what was good, what changed, what didn't. And Zoe has kindly agreed to come and share all of that with us, which I think is a good thing to do because this is not necessarily easy stuff to talk about, right?
Yeah. It's not easy, but I do feel like it's important. Just listening to your podcast, let alone, all the confidence coaching that you gave me, has really helped me to reflect in everyday life all those struggles, and the collaborative nature of your coaching. Hearing other women's experience, I was like, wow, I'm not just some weirdo who struggles every day and cries in the corner by myself or goes off into the toilet to have a little like
Hmm.
panic about what I'm doing.
Hmm.
Other real confident or seemingly confident to me, like really high profile people are
Hmm.
struggling with the same things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of the reason that I wanted to do it as a program, because prior to doing the program, I was just coaching people one on one, which is great. But part of the work, I think, is seeing that this is normal stuff that everybody faces, but
Yeah,
mostly people just don't talk about.
100%. I always remember one class where we'd all come together. There was you and there was three other women, and somebody started talking about their issue, and then the next person say, oh my god, that affects me too, and I said it, and the other person said it, and we all started crying together and being like, oh my god, yeah. I
I
really
do
feel
not
you.
remember
Do you not
that.
remember that? It really stuck with me because I was like, oh my god, we're
Oh
all
no, I
there, like emotionally
oh
charged.
no, I do remember. That was a group
Yeah,
coaching call, wasn't it?
it was.
Yes,
And I
I do.
can't quite remember what it was because I'm like a tearful person. I cry every time I speak to Anna.
Yeah,
So
I do remember. It was one of those where, and we always say this. Actually, I had a group coaching call today where I was like, the theme for today's call is one step at a time, and the theme for that day's call was you all were talking about the same thing, and it was hard for all of you.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
think it was life challenges, if I remember rightly,
it
life
was.
challenges like career progression, but being a woman, like how you can feel trapped in a job,
Yes, it
unable to
was.
progress, that type of
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you've got a good memory.
Stuck with me. They're profound. I found those sessions so profound.
Good. Yeah. And actually, some of yours stick with me as well. Actually, we were talking about one earlier about how you approach animals when they're freaking out, but maybe we could save that one for later. Um, Tell us a bit about, why did you join Confident at Work? What made you think, yeah, this is a good idea? What were you struggling with that you wanted to work on?
Was suggested to me at work after, I didn't get a job and I was feeling really low about it. And it was suggested to me, have you thought about confidence coaching? And I was thinking, I don't really know what that means. But I looked into it and I found your course and I was like, I trust Anna. I know Anna. It sounds really good. This sounds up my street. So I was like, I'll give it a go. And I went in thinking, you know what? I really want to stop acting at work, firstly. I don't want to be that person every day that has to be the happy, smiley face that brings a team vibe up and never cracks under pressure or never shows any other emotion other than a smile and,
Hmm.
be the helping hand for everyone else. I was feeling like that was so draining on me. And the other part of it was I just every little bit of criticism that I got, constructive or otherwise, it'd be like a mental flogging, which I know sounds really dramatic,
Yeah.
but I would literally berate myself for days on end
Hmm.
about that, or wake up in the middle of the night anxious about why that person said that, or why I got that feedback, why I made that spelling mistake in that email that I sent
Yeah.
to whichever director. Oh, it's exhausting.
Yeah. And was that stuff that was kind of new territory for you, or is that stuff that had been going on for a long time?
I can't remember not having that as part of my life, really. So
Yeah.
even at school, I think the amount of pressure that I put myself under to get top marks
Hmm.
or, do a perfect singing exam, just whatever it was, however big or small, it was always like a big deal.
Hmm.
I think I always felt a level of stress and anxiety, but I didn't really know what it was.
Yeah.
It became common nature to me, just
Yeah. Just like
everything.
the
Yeah.
norm.
Yeah, the norm.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said there, this kind of constant like acting and being this sort of happy face. And I that really sticks in my mind of the first, like the consult call that we had, where you talked about just dropping the act and just not wanting to act anymore.
Yeah. But there was a huge fear for me around that. I just felt, if that mask slips, would people not respect me anymore? Would I not be given certain pieces of work because people might not think I'd be able to cope with it?
Hmm.
Um, I was worried that I would be perceived as weak.
Yeah. Yeah. And what did the mask portray then? What was that meant to sort of show?
Sort of somebody who was like, yeah, happy-go-lucky, willing
Hmm.
to do anything. I will
Yeah.
be your confidant. I
Hmm.
will be your support. You can challenge me, but I won't be affected by that. Pile on the work. I'll just do it. I'm a yes person.
Hmm.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. And you said that for that never to crack.
Yeah. I honestly thought that if that did crack, and sometimes it did, but I
Mm.
would keep that firmly behind closed doors. So I would go when we were all in the office. In previous roles, this role, I would go to the toilet, and sometimes I'd just sit there and like, ooh, have a bit of a breather. I would have a little tear. I'd go out for a drink after work and maybe cry to a friend.
Mm.
Things, things that were very secret. I would never show that to a colleague, or I'd definitely try not to. Or when I did, I would absolutely berate myself for that as well. I would find that really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And what how would you come to the point then of thinking that you didn't want to act anymore, you didn't want to wear a mask anymore?
I think it came to a point where I was doing it so much that actually I was thinking, I'm really tired of this. I'm really exhausted. Other people are struggling. I'm struggling too.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what the balance would be, especially in a management role. Can you show a vulnerability without being weak?
Hmm.
I want to be somebody who is um, attuned to my own emotions as well as other people to support them better. But I found I was confused and I needed guidance about what was okay for me and what
Yeah.
what where was the line going to be drawn,
Yeah.
basically.
And how did the program or the process of the coaching or the training, or what was it that helped you to or well, I guess I should ask at first, have you been able to stop acting all the time?
Yes, I really have, and I've been able to open up and be more truthful actually about how I'm feeling, which has helped me. Some constructive criticism that I've constantly got actually is about trying to be a bit more direct and
Hmm.
saying what I think and not being that yes person. That is what's helped me get there, because I have it. That mask was actually stopping me being direct, or stopping me saying no, or stopping me having that difficult conversation in some respects. And so I've helped to break down those barriers.
Yeah. Yeah. And but how did you, like, what had to change in order for you to do that, or to at least try?
What didn't change, Anna? Honestly, I honestly thought it would be like that one issue going into the program.
Mhm.
But what it actually drew out was there were multiple things going on in my brain and my physical reaction to situations that were limiting my ability to progress, or ability to want to progress or go for a job. It was really eye-opening for me that coaching could bring out such a wide range of issues that actually were so buried deep and I was so afraid of, that I didn't even know that they were there. I wasn't that conscious to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that is typically what the process of coaching does, right? Because we all have ways of operating. If you take that example of, wearing a mask or acting, we all have ways of operating at work and in life, which there's a reason why we're doing it. There's,
Mhm.
maybe we're keeping ourselves safe, or but most of what we're doing is unconscious. So it's
Yeah.
not like I've made a choice that I'm going to put this mask on and I'm never going to let it slip. It's probably like it's developed as a behavior and as a way of managing something, but then most of what's going on is just unconscious, and that's just the way you do things.
Yeah, completely.
What did you become aware of? What became conscious that used to be unconscious? And you just actually triggered a memory for me that in our first session, at the end of it, you went, well, that went deep. I was like, yeah, it did. I don't think you were
Oh
expecting it.
no, not so much. I mean, I never thought it'd be just surface level because you're going to talk about things, but oh my goodness, I think it was like a massive shock how deep we went. And what was it that we were discussing in that first session? I think that was it. It was my guilt complex.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Remember the family guilt complex.
I call it the molten guilt gene.
Yeah,
I
that was
will
it.
name and shame it on this podcast. And I used it as a joke. I was like, yeah, my family's just, we're quite guilty people. We just, we feel sorry for people all the time, or we want to make people better.
Mm,
A lot of my family work in the NHS, so that's what we do,
yeah.
thinking it was completely normal. And the way that manifested in my life was that if I saw somebody else upset at work or stressed at work, I really felt this overwhelming desire to take that pain or whatever it was, whatever emotion that they were feeling away from them and take it on myself and
Mm-hmm.
put it on my own shoulders and in my own being. It was, yeah, I think I'm still doing that to this day, but the coaching has really helped me to recognize it and think, okay, how am I going to protect myself a little bit from that? And it's still a work in progress because it's such a big issue.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to like the mask or acting, how is that linked to that issue?
I think it was like the mask bit was the desire to protect myself, not quite understanding what I was protecting myself from and why.
Mm-hmm.
So, to the person that was upset, say, I would have this mask of everything's going to be okay. Let me take this pain away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And inside, I would be overcome with that emotion for them. And it would be really damaging to my well-being. And I can say that now because I think it has been in the past a little bit damaging to my well-being.
Yeah.
And I'd even blame myself for why they were feeling that way, even if it wasn't my fault.
Mm-hmm. And how do you deal with that now? Has it changed?
Definitely, it's definitely a work in progress, but what you've given me is the skills to firstly recognize it.
Yeah.
Secondly, if it's coming on, just be aware what's happening to my body, like the physical reaction to it. Because for me, I'm quite a physical person.
Mm-hmm.
So that physical reaction highlights to me, like, okay, I'm getting really tense here. Let's try and relax my body somehow. And then that feeds into my brain. My brain's getting really tense and stressed. And you taught me to kind of give myself, and it sounds so wishy-washy, but it really, really works, a little bit of a mental hug.
Mm-hmm.
And to say, you know what, I'm going to have to go and get a cup of tea now. I'm not feeling okay.
Mm-hmm.
And have that rest and that recuperation.
Yeah, because one of the things that I remember that we talked about was you you were acutely aware of how to care for other people, how to support other people at work, but you maybe weren't that great at doing it for yourself.
You're so kind, Anna. I was rubbish at that. I mean, talk about being your own worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I really, some of the thoughts that I had going around my head were when I think about them now, and you made me write down a list once of
Yeah.
what those thoughts and feelings about myself were, they were very unkind.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I should say for people listening that one of the first kind of community class that we do together in the program, we look at what is going on in our head, like that critical voice that's in our head. What is that saying to us day to day? Because what I know is that I'm going to have to work on that with every single client that wants to improve their confidence, because it makes sense that if somebody is criticizing you all day, it's going to be really hard to maintain your confidence. And even if no one external is criticizing you, if you're criticizing you all day, it's going to be really hard to maintain your confidence. It creates a lot of pressure, a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And I make people write a list of the stuff that their brain says to them. And it is pretty brutal seeing it in black and white.
Yeah. It was really hard to read.
Yeah.
I found it quite distressing because you know what? Some of those thoughts, if I think about it, yeah, I was mildly aware of them, but I thought them so much
Mm.
that actually I believed it. I really, really believed what I was telling myself.
Yeah.
And these thoughts for me ranged from how I was at work, to my quality of work, to how I spoke, to how I looked, everything.
Mhm.
And seeing all that written down, I was like, thank God I'm doing this course.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you look back on that now, if you think about that list you wrote down, and everybody has one, right? Everyone
Yeah.
has that critic that lives in their brain and says stuff to them. What impact do you think that was having on you?
If I could describe it in physical terms, if I was a giant, I was suddenly like shrinking to the size of a little mouse.
Ooh.
That's what it was doing for me. So every time like somebody gave me praise, I would not actually be able to take that praise very easily. I would be, oh, thank you, but you're really, really good, and deflect. And then I'd park that away and say, that's nice praise, but I know what you're really like.
Hmm.
So every little bit of positive was always just run down really in my brain by a negative.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that there's probably people listening to this now that are thinking, oh, yeah, that sounds like me. Like
Yeah.
most of us have a axe wielding maniac living inside our brain. And not only do we not talk about it, but we're never taught how to deal with it.
Not at all. Not at all. And you think it's okay to do that to yourself. I honestly thought that I was just speaking truths to myself. And you highlighted to me quite early on, would I say that to somebody else? And I was like, oh my God, no, of course not. No, how awful. Never say that to anybody else. And then you just simply said, well, why say it to yourself? And it's quite shocking. It seems so simple, and at the same time, I've never ever considered that what I was saying to myself might be mean and cruel and upsetting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that struck me when we were talking about that was that you you really care about women and women's rights and women's safety, and I remember thinking, like, actually this issue of having this like horrible voice in our head that's, let's let's call it for what it is. Like, if I think about the list of stuff that my brain used to say to me, that's abuse.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody had been saying that to me, it would be abuse. And if someone in the workplace had been saying that to me, it would have been classed as workplace bullying, harassment.
Absolutely.
Easily the stuff that my brain was saying to me would have been classed like that.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah. You do think about all these women who do suffer domestic violence, verbal abuse,
Yeah.
and this is, I would say, it is akin to abusing myself. I mean,
Hmm.
not to diminish anything that women are going through out there at all. I can't
Yeah.
even imagine. But in some respects, I have been abusing myself.
Yeah. And I think most of us do.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Completely agree.
it plays havoc with confidence.
It really does. And
Yeah.
you
So
never really see a man. I mean, some men may suffer from the same things, but I usually hear men saying, I can do that job. I can
mhm.
do that. I can succeed. I can be promoted. In fact, I'm going to go for that promotion, which is 3 grades above my level.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm ready for the next step.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
even worse things were said.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, it stands to reason that if you believe the voice in your head, which is saying, oh, well, you can't do this, and why are you even here? And you never should have got that job. If somebody was saying that to you all day, every day, you wouldn't want to go for a promotion, would you?
No, no. You'd want to crawl up into a little ball
Yeah,
and never
of
get out of
course.
bed.
Exactly. So even with all that going on, you still manage to be successful in your career. So how has that changed? What has changed in relation to that now?
I feel more able to grasp opportunities
Hmm.
as they arise. So before I'd be like, oh, I don't know about this. I don't know if I can do it. Will I really be good enough for that role? All these negative thoughts that come to my mind with any single opportunity, however big, however small. It could be
Hmm.
just like a new task that I've never done before,
Yeah.
or even a task that I have done before, a new organization, or just some slight difference. And now I'm able to I get an opportunity and I think, I am a bit nervous. Yeah, I'm
Hmm.
feeling those nerves, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to give it a go. Kind of like this podcast. I was like, oh, I'm feeling a bit nervous, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to give
Yes.
it a go.
Sweet. And what have you found when you actually have felt the nerves but been able to give it a go? How have things been?
Not been that bad. It's
Hmm.
not been that bad. I've done it. Sometimes I've been successful. Sometimes, yeah, I've learned some things, could have been
Hmm.
better,
Yeah.
but it's all been an opportunity and it's all been okay. And I've been able to give myself that mental big hug and just, yeah, have a go.
Yes. I just love it for you, Zoe, that now there is someone with you 24/7 that is willing to just give you a hug.
I know. I know. I didn't have that hug before. I just didn't have it. Or I'd seek it from other people, seek reassurance.
Hmm.
And now I'm able to give it to myself. I
Hooray!
know.
Love it. You need lots of hugs.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
physical contact.
Yeah. Yeah. And how has that voice in your head changed now, if it has?
It has changed. The negative thoughts still come back. I think it's going
Yeah.
to be a lifelong battle for me.
Hmm.
But the negative thoughts come and I have this kind of way of dealing with it where I visualize in my mind um almost this protective bubble around myself,
Hmm.
which sounds probably a bit strange to a lot of people, but I like visual thinking. So it works for me. It's the
Mm.
approach that you taught me and it has worked. So I put this little protective, shining light around myself, and I'm able to almost imagine those thoughts being deflected off me, like light beams off me. Then all the good can come in. And we talked a lot, again, because I just work in visual ways. We talked a lot about open my heart, and sometimes I had my heart in a little box with a little bow on, all tightly sealed.
Mm.
And that's now able to just open up a little bit more to people, to myself, to situations. It's quite a emotional experience for me, and one that has been so beneficial. I cannot thank you enough really for it.
Oh, wow. I will take that. You're welcome. It was great. It was great coaching. I love because everyone comes at things differently and everyone has different ways of working. Like you said, I'm a physical person and I'm like aware of my body and I'm visual. And so I see things. And that's like part of the joy of what I get to do working with different people is everybody latches on to something slightly different. People feel it or they see it or they move or they and everyone is different, and it's finding ways of managing this stuff which fits in with you and who you are and how you like to work. And I think you really embraced that.
Like not one approach fits all, is it? Everyone's
Yeah.
so different.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like you clocked on quite quickly that that's how I worked in the body and
Mm-hmm.
visual, and because I used to dance a lot, things like that. We really worked on certain techniques which would work for me, which would
Yeah.
seem really bizarre to some other people. I sit there sometimes and have a little stretch of my body at my desk, or
Mm-hmm.
do things with my hands just to release tension. It may look really odd for
Yeah.
some people, but for me it really, really helps.
Good. Yeah, good. And one of the things that we talked quite a lot about, and I think we kind of pondered this in terms of, as well as coaching on it, I think we kind of pondered it in terms of leadership. And I've been thinking a lot about it since the New Zealand Prime Minister resigned her position. And I was thinking about her and the kind of leadership that she embodied, and her giving that quote, and I'm going to butcher the quote, but it was something like, she's been criticized for being for having emotion and for having empathy, and she says, I absolutely reject that. Like, that is my strength as a leader. And that made me think of you, because I know we talked about that a lot,
Yeah.
and that is a strength in terms of your leadership. But that that strength can also, it also comes with a responsibility and a burden, because you care about things, you feel things, and yet you're still there doing the job and doing leadership and doing everything that you have to do. Tell us about where you started with that.
Oh, I'm on a big emotional wreck. I'm definitely somebody who wears my heart on my sleeve, and you're right, I wanted to be the leader and the manager who was attuned to other people's emotions, who was kind, compassionate, and considerate. But at the same time, I felt unable to show people my true emotions for fear they would be rejected, or I would be seen as this weak female. Like, you have to be strong, powerful man in this world who doesn't show any emotion. And if, oh my God, if you dare look upset or cry, that's because you're a female and you're a bit weak.
Yeah.
And that's genuinely like what I felt. I thought, oh my God, nobody will take me seriously if I show any emotion.
Mm.
But then at the same time, if I don't show my vulnerability, how can I be the leader that I want to be?
Mm.
And let other people come to me with their experiences and emotions and their true feelings. I was so confused. So that's how I started off in this whole confused ball of emotion.
Yeah. And how did the ball get unraveled?
It was a process. There were definitely tears involved, and anger and frustration and
Yes.
and, and love and all the emotions. Um, but you helped me to really actually better understand, firstly, what leader I wanted to be and what type of manager I wanted to be.
Mm.
Understand, yeah, there's going to be some burden, but how I can help protect myself from other people's emotions and not taking their feelings on board too much, i.e., like not making them my own or not considering them to be my fault.
Yeah.
And you help me to believe that it actually is a strength, because I did not believe that before. I believed that emotion was a weakness, and you helped me believe that this could be my strength and is my strength and will be why I can become a good leader one day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's heartening to hear that, because I think the experience that you talked about of thinking like, I've got to be powerful and I've got to be this and I've got to be that. It's like so many people when they come to me are like, I need to be more confident. So I need to be like this.
Yeah.
And it's like some kind of caricature of like a man, let me say, with
Yep.
with no emotions, who doesn't actually give a shit about anyone, because caring about stuff is hard.
Yeah. And that was 100% the image I had in my mind. That man in a, nice blue suit in the middle of
Yeah. With
London,
pinstripe suit.
crisp white shirt, tie, cufflinks,
Yeah.
doesn't give a shit about anybody else.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to care less. I'm caring too much. I want to care less.
Mm-hmm.
You completely changed my opinion on that. And you've made me realize that it is good to care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Welcome the caring nature.
Yeah. And I think like the process of what the process of coaching does around an issue like this is it says, well, okay, who are you? What is important to you? How do you want to manage? How do you want to lead? And then if you're thinking, oh, I have to do it like this, we just ask questions around that and say, well, do you?
Yeah.
Do you have to do it like that? I mean, we call him Billy Big Bollocks, that character. It's like, do you want to be Billy Big Bollocks? And you're like, no. It's like, well, how about being you?
Yeah.
How would
Yeah.
that be?
It's basically, I mean, for me, I was putting myself in this tiny wee little box or trying to fit myself into this box,
Mm,
the Billy Big Bollocks box.
yeah.
And you help to slowly and carefully unwrap that box and open it up so that I could be me. And it's a big, powerful statement that for me, to just be oneself is like, I was not being myself. It comes back to the acting again at work. I was
Mm,
not being me. And now I am able to, a little bit of a time, open up my box, open up my heart, and be me.
yeah. And how does it feel to be you?
Feels quite good. Feels sometimes a bit scary. It can
Yep.
sometimes feel a bit like overwhelming,
Mm-hmm.
but it feels right. Feels like that's what it should be.
Mm-hmm. That's good to hear. Yeah. And we talked about like there being you stopping, acting, like stopping the mask. And if you just you, I guess you don't have to do the acting.
Yeah.
So that's a tick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it less exhausting then?
Yes, it really is. I mean, don't get me wrong, when I get upset or frustrated at work, it's still feeling emotion. I want to
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
those emotions. That is exhausting. But the layer on top of that I had was, let's just suppress those. Let's keep them down. Let's not show anybody. Let's not acknowledge them. Let's not consider that they're there.
Mm,
Let's put on the mask. And that process was draining beyond belief.
mm.
I didn't realize how tiring it was actually until I've stopped doing it. And when I do it, when sometimes I slip back into old habits, because
Yeah.
you do, I'm like, oh my God, I'm tired of this. And I realize that I can
Oh.
recognize it. And I'm like, oh God, get me out of this zone.
Yeah, so when you've got it's like the tell that you've got the mask on because you're exhausted.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
physically and emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah. And talking about like being possibly when you're yourself, it is more vulnerable, and
Mhm.
there are emotions that come with being at work when you care about it and you care about people, and there are difficult days and difficult times. And one of the things that we coached on was, how do you take care of yourself when you're having a difficult day, a difficult hour, a difficult time at work? And this is not just something that I coach with Zoe about. I think it's something that I coach with people about again and again and again, because at work, we all know how we want to relate to other people when they're having a bad time or a bad day. We know that we listen to them, we validate what they're feeling, we acknowledge what's going on for them, we see whether there's anything we can do, or we just listen, we offer them some comfort, some support, whatever. And when it comes to how we deal with ourselves when we're having a bad day or a bad time, it is completely different. What was your experience of that?
Yeah, I think previously you're completely right. It was no acknowledgement, no comfort for myself. It was right, like head down, let's carry on at work. Nobody must see that anything has happened to rock my day. Let's just bash out this piece of work. Go, go, go.
Mhm.
Let's just pile on the pressure just to make it a little bit worse.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, I'm feeling this. I acknowledge it firstly, and I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling these emotions. I think that's valid that I'm feeling that way.
Mhm.
Okay, that emotion isn't going away right now. I'm going to do something that comforts myself. And that can be as simple for me as going to make myself a cup of tea, having a biscuit, going to walk the dog,
Mhm.
going to a class after work, anything really to actually soothe myself. And I wasn't giving myself opportunity to soothe myself. And then once I've done that, and I do feel a bit better, you taught me how to be a bit more reflective about it. So, really understanding why I was feeling that way and how to support myself. Did the techniques work? Do I need to try something else in the future? So, it's kind of like a constant process that I'm now able to navigate.
Cool. Good. And what does that mean for your like working day?
It means that I can be happier at work because I can be happier with myself.
Mhm.
That self critic it can be diminished. It can the angel on my shoulder can come
Oh
out
God, I
and save me.
remember that. There was an
Yeah.
angel on one side and a devil on the
Oh,
other.
yeah. And the
Yeah.
devil used to be massive, and the angel, like, barely there, a speck of dust.
Yeah.
And now they're more equal partners,
Mhm.
and most of the time I'm able to make the angel a bit bigger and make those positive thoughts really come out, so I'm not beating myself down.
Yeah.
And if I do go into a negative cycle, which, I do sometimes,
Yeah.
I can draw upon all those techniques that you taught me just to give myself a real big mental hug to make sure that my mental health and well-being is a part of my everyday life, as
Good.
well as looking after others.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. You're looking after Zoe as well as looking after other people.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, because there's one person that's always available to look after us, and it is us. And I don't mean by that that we don't need other people and we don't live in community. We definitely do.
Yeah.
But if you've got one person at least who's, you can rely on to be like a soft landing on a
Yeah.
shit day, that just makes life so much easier.
Completely agree. You can have your friends, your family, your loved one, whoever,
Mm.
telling you all the loveliest things in the world, but it has to be you to believe it and tell yourself those things. Otherwise, it won't go in, it won't work.
Mm-hmm. Does it go in now?
Yeah, a little bit every single day. Little and often.
Yes. Cool. Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you for
been a
having
really
me.
lovely conversation. And I'm sure that people listening will be able to identify with some of the stuff that you're talking about. And thank you for actually talking about it because, like I say, it's not stuff that generally people share. Most people keep this stuff to themselves. And I think you're probably similar, Zoe, that most people who come and coach don't have these conversations outside of their coaching sessions at the beginning.
No.
It's mostly stuff that people have been dealing with on their own for a really long time.
Yeah. Let's not be embarrassed of the emotion.
Yes, ma'am. And I actually think that's a feminist issue.
Me too. Massively.
Mm-hmm.
We could
Yeah.
spend another whole hour talking about
Oh,
that.
yeah. Yeah, we could. You'll have to, listeners, you'll have to imagine that one for yourselves. Emotions are a feminist issue. I will have that on another podcast, and I'll have a group of people to come in and rant about it, which will be amazing.
Yeah. Therapeutic.
Yes, but also interesting. All right, Zoe, before you go, what would you what piece of advice, or what would you say to somebody who is listening and thinking, oh God, yeah, that sounds like me. I think some of the similar stuff to the stuff that you've been sharing today.
I would say, firstly, well done for recognizing that, because I found that hard. And if you've recognized it, really consider confidence coaching, because you never know what it will do for you, and it will only be a positive in your life. Give it a go and don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
Exactly.
And I wasn't asking for a plug there, but there, Zoe gave us one.
It's true.
Other confidence coaches are available. All right, cool. Thank you. And it's been lovely chatting to you.
And you, thank you, Anna.
You're very welcome. And we'll do this another time. But from everybody listening and from me, thank you, Zoe, for coming and for sharing so honestly. I know that other people are going to enjoy listening to the conversation too. And we'll see you another time.